Trying to get this truck to idle a little bit better. We're gonna plastidip my Civic. The body isn't the best. Like, it's got some surface rust in some few spots. We just washed it up. As you can see, this is going to be a before kind of walk around. We did a little minor rust repair on this rear quarter here. And yeah, we're debating on whether we're going to go gray or black. So you'll find out soon. Masked up, kinda. We're mainly just masking off the seams and the edges. If it gets on the window, it's not a big deal. You could literally just rub it right off. Package is in the mail for the Civic. I got some new headlights and taillights to go along with the Plastidip job that we're doing. These are the headlights. And then these are SI style taillights where it's clear on the bottom and red on the top, compared to the, amber bottoms on the factory ones here. So we're gonna throw those in next, and then we should be pretty much wrapped up. Look at this thing, why don't we? Doesn't look too bad. I got to hang the bumper and stuff yet. The mounting tab on this side busted. But I got them new eBay headlights in there. They look pretty nice. Yeah, buddy. Once again, not too bad for the amount of money and time invested into this. I think we got about 4 hours into the whole process, and about 60 to 70 bucks. So not too bad if you're looking for a quick paint job. All motor or turbo? What one's better for you? That's the question. Realistically, to help people decide on what's better for them, be it be all motor or turbo, is really kind of a complicated subject. But I can break it down in simple terms for you to just say that all motor usually costs more money. Turbocharger kits are usually cheaper, or supercharger kit or any boosted application is usually cheaper to get horsepower out of than it is to try to make an engine naturally aspirated and make the same power. If you have a $5,000 budget and you want to have an all motor car, you may get 300 horsepower out of it, versus if you spent that same $5,000 on a motor, it may make 600 horsepower with a turbocharger. Turbochargers generally need a little bit more fine tuning, and some people say that they're less reliable because of the tuning mainly. Usually when a motor isn't tuned properly with a turbocharger, they blow up easy. So you always got to make sure you got the right fuel in it, and a good tune-up and a trustworthy guy tuning your car, because otherwise if you don't, you're going to melt it down pretty much right away. Versus having an all motor car, they're usually a little bit more forgiving than a turbocharged car, because having an engine naturally suck in air versus having it forced down its throat, they just seem to be a little bit more reliable. And that brings me into what tuning really is. And tuning isn't really just sitting behind the laptop. Tuning isn't just sitting on the dyno and playing with the ECU. Tuning can start from literally bare bones stuff. I mean, a lot of you watching probably tune your own stuff and you don't even realize it. Tuning can be, as simple as gapping spark plugs, putting the right oil in the car, kind of just prep work to make horsepower. I actually have great success with tuning on the street. It's not necessarily the safest thing to do. I feel like street tuning gives a more real world scenario for a car to perform, versus if you're on a dyno with a certain load and a certain RPM, it may not act the same when you're on the street or at the track. So even if a car is dyno tuned, which I've actually tuned cars on the street that were previously dyno tuned, and I've cleaned them up and it ran and drove 100 times better, people just feel like if there's a dyno involved, it's better. And that's not necessarily always the case. A dyno is just a tool. It's a tuning tool. That's all a dyno is. It's not mandatory for tuning. I mean, dude, I've went 1050s with a street tune. Literally not even throwing it on the dyno ever. I actually threw it on the dyno afterwards, and people were like, oh, well, I wouldn't even touch this if it was on my dyno because it's perfect. There's nothing that needs to be adjusted because it's on the dyno. Like I said, a dyno is just a tuning tool and a way to safer tune a vehicle. The biggest thing of tuning is learning the software. Some softwares could have one ignition table where another software could have 15 ignition tables, and anything in between. So that's kind of confusing for a lot of people, as they don't really understand what to do when they're in a certain software or whatever. Back in the day, it was a lot easier with a carburetor and a distributor, where you could just literally set the timing and you could just go make a pass, and if it picks up, leave it, or keep going on the direction you were going. If you guys have any other questions with tuning or what it is, or questions about what I do for tuning, let me know. Also for all motor or turbo, let me know if you have any questions on that stuff. Like I said, generally all motor is going to be more expensive than turbocharging. Today I'm actually going to mess with my transmission cooler on the truck a little bit. Right now it's actually currently mounted very shitty. It was just a temporary deal to be able to get everything working at the time. But currently, after some real hard runs and everything like that, the trans does get upwards of 200 degrees, and anything over 200 degrees is kind of critical on a trans. Usually the cooler you can keep the transmission, the longer it's going to live and the better it's going to perform. So right now the tranny cooler is actually mounted right on the intercooler, like I said, because this was a temporary fix. But we're actually going to modify this and see if we can maybe put a fan on it and mount it somewhere else to maybe help with the transmission temperature. I actually removed the transmission cooler and I remounted it under the truck. I'll show you. Hopefully you can see it. Right up here. And I actually have a cooling fan on it now too. So now I just got to plumb the lines going into the cooler and wire the fan. Got my tranny cooler all dialed in on the truck now. The slim fan and everything seems to be helping a little bit. I drove it around for probably like 30 minutes. And it's definitely a lot slower to climb in temperature. So once we get it to the racetrack and actually be able to run it really hard, we'll know more. But it seems like it definitely helps. It seems like it's definitely helped quite a bit. And the front end definitely looks a lot better without a tranny cooler sitting on the intercooler. And another update on the Civic here. I actually just ordered all my turbo stuff for it. So I'm hoping within a week or so we should have all the parts, and you'll be seeing a video on that coming up.